definitely it comes out in the writings of Dr. Dabholkar also, this sensitivity to discrimination and to social oppression, that there is no rationalism without such sensitivity. And you're right also about the science march. I went to the one in Delhi, and while it was not, super radical in the way that you would find like a writing of Periyar to be, for example, it was still they were talking about representation, and they were talking about reclaiming the public nature of science and doing it in public institutions rather than having it be appropriated. So I think those are very valuable demands to make and very valuable movements to support as well. Um, to round this out, I think, what do you then think it means for us to have rationalism be a political project? So, how is it different from just a scientist thinking about rationalism, albeit for society? But what does it mean to have a broader view of rationalism while we do politics?
Now, I think across the political spectrum, we need to think about some of these things and revisit some of the discussions and debates on the philosophy of science, what it means today. Because you see, globally, there seems to be an anti-science, rise of anti-science, and uh, some years back, if you take a few decades back, in fact, pre-liberalization, a lot of the anti-science, so you take the anti-vaccination movement or the alternative medicine movement in the global north, in Europe and US, etc. It came from what people who were otherwise considered left-leaning politically, right? But much more associated with the hippie sort of non-conformist kind of movements. And it arose out of a very strong suspicion of big corporations and capitalism as being all-consuming in this. And so therefore, what was celebrated was individual agency to break out of some of these things, because all science and technology was considered to be basically promoted by this sort of interests of big capital. Um, and that points to the political system, under which the process of science and technological development takes place. But there was this confusion, and fortunately in India, it was very clear in India's movements, etc. We did not at that point of time. At least this confusion was lesser in some sense. I suppose it's because we've not had the benefits that people in the global north have had of the developments of scientific temper. But you see, today, what's happening is these seem to be going very easily with the anti-vax, the right-wing anti-vaccination, etc., that come from extremely individualized, the modern day Ayn Rand kind of promoters. The no interference of the government, because the government is synonymous with big corporations, big pharma. Bill Gates is out for everybody's life, so vaccination is a so this kind of conspiratorial understanding of the pandemic. So COVID-19, for example, we have a lot of conspiracy theories floating around. Like I said, I think that it's bigger than our sort of pseudoscientific stuff that is being peddled in India. I think the pandemic and the conspiracy theories and the anti-vaccination stuff that's going on globally is much more dangerous because it sort of also has provided a window for the extremely rabidly right-wing, the neo-Nazis, etc., coming out against the government, even against their own conservative governments. So the far right is sort of gaining ground in these movements. And you see this sort of, very easy relationship that has been formed by people who are otherwise seen to be the non-conformist sort of left-leaning types, and the anti-vaxxers, the rabidly right-wing, on the other. And I think that is because in both there is a confusion and a sort of, I think, misplaced skepticism of science and technology. I think one task that we need to take on is to basically talk about science and the process of science and what it is, not as a set of equations to be solved inside a laboratory, but as a process of learning, as a process of knowing both the natural world and the social world. Revelation is not a means of knowing anything, or a means of knowledge for anything, be it a knowledge of the natural world or the social world. I think that idea of science as being anti-authoritarian, as rejecting received wisdom simply because its claims its claims of wisdom come from some otherworldly authority. I think that we have to strengthen our communication and our defense of science on that ground. And the other, as I said, in India specifically, I think we need to take on proactively, and ally with take on politically the radical uh, ideas of the annihilation of caste, of gender equality, etc., that are very much needed for any kind of progress that we would expect to achieve, even under capitalism in this country. I think it is necessary for us to fight these things. But I think it's this, an alliance between the movements that are that speak about science and science, publicly funded science, the quest for knowledge, and against the social irrationalities that exist in society. There is a very clear relationship there, and I think if we need to sort of strengthen that alliance, take forward this agenda, because both in India and globally, I think we have a serious problem now of people confusing science and scientific technology, scientific development with the political system, and being increasingly appropriated by the rapidly right-wing groups that are emerging.
Yeah, I think that framing of oppression as social irrationalities is a really, really good point to take off from to build such a political project, I think. So thank you so much, Tejal, for that helpful framing of oppression as social irrationality, and I think that's a really helpful takeoff point for both the rationalist movement and movements in India against social evils. And hopefully, in the future, a political project of rationalism sees both these strands work together to defeat the majoritarian religiosity and obscurantism that we see reigning in our country today. Thanks so much.
Okay.